All right, 6 o'clock. Let's get this party rolling here.
Are you here for tax aid committee?
I am.
Okay,
You want to take it out of order?
sure. Let's open this. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to open up the select board meeting. It is for the June 3rd, 2025. It is, I believe, 6:01. Agenda tonight consists of public comment, FY25 year-end budget transfers, annual board committee commission appointments, approval of the meeting minutes for May 21st, 2025, an update on 473 High Street, the tax aid committee update, discussion on the leave time buyback for the police officers union members, the highway superintendent truck lease purchase agreement, and a request for the dangerous dog hearing and the town administrator's report. And that's it. First, we'll open public comment. Is anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to something that is not on the agenda? There being none, we'll move on. Okay. We can take that out of order if you like. Move Ann Frieda here to discuss the tax aid committee. Do you have an update for us?
I do. Thank you very much for giving me time on the agenda. This evening I wanted to update everyone. It's been a year. More or less since our appointment, and we are moving right along. We're getting ready to probably tomorrow, so when we have quorum, we will be approving program description, we will be approving an application, we will be discussing ways in which we can start communicating. But let me start back a year ago. So we were formed in June. We got the ball rolling, really probably it was the fall before we got everything moving. The first thing that the committee did was we surveyed the other towns in Commonwealth who had similar programs operating, and we reviewed those. There's probably upwards of 30 towns. Each town has quite unique methods of interpreting the statute, but we looked at all of them and evaluated them in light of our town, our demographics, and we took what we believed to be the best practices, and we started to discuss those. So, and I also, in terms of evaluating, I was able to speak to the Council on Aging in Groton, to see what they're doing there, and I was lucky enough, the woman I spoke to had also held a similar role in Littleton, so I got the perspective from Littleton as well. And then of course we spoke with our own assessors and our own Council on Aging. So we did a lot of research first before we started figuring out what we thought the best eligibility criteria would be for our town. The goals, I think, for the committee we identified was we wanted to have a process that was not intrusive. There were very involved and somewhat intrusive programs out there, measured probably with the size of the town and the size of their funds. We wanted there to be just basic eligibility criteria, and we wanted to identify a familiar standard in the evaluation of low income. So I believe there's in your packet, you'll see an outline of my comments. I won't read them to you, but I wanted the board to have them available to you. The first phase we're about to wrap up is what I consider to be the create phase. So we took the purpose and composition of the committee. I think all of this is incorporated or included in the statute, nothing's new. We did decide that we were going to evaluate applications annually, once annually, February 2nd. We thought February 2nd aligned well with the new tax year. We determined eligibility requirements. So there's essentially 3 major eligibility requirements. Elderly or disabled. So we defined elderly to be age 65 or over as of the date of the application, or disabled, so the individual could be of any age, but they would need to establish that they're currently receiving disability benefits from a state or federal agency. You need to be a Dunstable resident. We determined that that meant to be a resident of Dunstable for at least 5 years, and you must reside in full title in some form to the residence for which you are seeking relief. Low income requirement was the one where there was the greatest variability and probably the most intrusiveness with respect to establishing eligibility for low income. we decided to fit the character of the town and the appetite of the committee that we would make it as simple as we could. So we contacted the Board of Assessors, we determined that for CPA exemption, evaluation, there's a CPA, formula that's used, which essentially, takes into account the HUD low income formula. We use that in this town already, so we're adopted, or we will tomorrow when we vote on it, we'll adopt their criteria as indicative of low income. The applications and awards will be done annually. We'll start reviewing, applications February 2nd, and we'll review all the applications that are in front of us. They'll be obviously confidential, reviewed with an executive session. And they will be awarded annually and applied directly to their property tax bills as evaluated by the committee, and we determine that our determinations are final. So that's the composition of what we think we want to do. Tomorrow when we have quorum, we did not have quorum last week, so we pushed by a week of determination of all of those things. But assuming we have a quorum tomorrow, that's where I expect we'll land with respect to eligibility. We have an application that's a very simple one-page application. We'll ask for a birth certificate. We'll ask for your 1040 or your Massachusetts Form 1, something to indicate your income. If there's a disability eligibility claim, we'll ask for some indication of your current awarded eligibility. So that's how we think we're going to be running the program. We now have to obviously communicate the program because I think the fund has somewhere in the nature of $400 in it or $500 in it. So a lot of this is theoretical so far, but we're obviously hoping to, once we are able to communicate the fact that we're doing all this work, we have this program, we will get the word out. Bonnie informed me yesterday, much to my chagrin, because I guess I don't look at my tax bills, that there is a place on the tax bill where you can mail in a voluntary donation. Sue, thank God, gratefully is going to help us, or Bonnie, I think, is going to help us put the option for donation on the Unipay site.
Mhm.
Hopefully, as more people transition to paying their taxes online, they'll see that Unipay, and hopefully we'll collect more revenue that way. We'll, obviously join all of the town socials, and just basically have a communication campaign over the next 6, 7, 8 months where we'll be communicating the work of the committee, what we're doing, and we'll be seeking donations.
And people can just send in a donation.
They can absolutely
My
send
taxes
it.
just go through my mortgage, so I don't
Right,
ever see it, yeah.
right, that's what
Yeah.
we were running into, is that, people are not, scanning and scouring their tax bills, case in point. But I am starting to use the online form, so if there's, sort of a check here or a donation, hopefully we'll be seeing some donations. And then we'll just, get the word out over the course of the next 6 or 7 months as opportunities arise. We do intend to speak, I've spoken with Chuck already, we'll speak to seniors because we want to make sure not only do we want donations, but we also want applications. So we'll be speaking to Dunstable seniors, answering questions, set forth the program, et cetera, et cetera.
Did you say that everybody would have to reapply every year?
Yes, yes. The one question we have not determined is whether, and a lot of this is really kind of fund balance dependent, is whether we would leave some seed money in the fund year over year. At such low levels, it probably doesn't really matter other than just to, just for the optics. Some towns do, leave a size, if they have sizable fund that leaves a certain percentage in just to sort of keep the wheels greased over the course of the year. But we do not believe, and I'm couching some of this because we're gonna have Lori Brooks and I would like to be reappointed. We need one more resident member, so we lost a resident member, and as you all know, we're gonna get a new treasurer and a new chair of the Board of Assessors. So come June sometime, certainly the composition of the board is gonna change. So I don't wanna commit too much without that new board together and, getting what their opinions and thoughts are.
Mhm.
But my thought anyway is that we would divide the amount that we have available among the number of eligible applicants. As I said, some towns, they have sliding scales, they want to see, basically, a statement from your CPA. It's very intrusive, and we just decided that just didn't fit our character, and it's just a lot of work, and we just don't have the time or the talent, frankly, to do something like that. So I'm thinking we'll, determine how much the award would be, and then divide it by the number of eligible applications that we have reviewed. So that's really kind of, I think, where we are. Obviously, we can, I'm happy to answer any questions.
This is great. It's incredibly thorough, which is awesome. I think that's what this committee will be, really valuable to those that we could help in town. I don't know the methods to, like, we can't use CPA funds for this type of thing for laws and stuff like that. So I don't really have other than advertise and things like that, get sort of to build up a kitty, and then, come February 2nd, roll through a process to evaluate those that apply and really try to just be a resource to residents, even if just for information. So
Right.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, and it was very important for members of the committee that we are definitive as to who we are and what we can do, but also we know that the seniors probably would benefit from understanding sort of what else is on the menu of assistance for them. So, I think when I have more detailed conversations with Chuck, I would like for us to be alone by ourselves when we present it for the first time. But certainly we would be available if Chuck wanted to ever put on some kind of financial literacy type of program for the seniors. We would be happy to participate in that as well as one of however many other programs there are that can avail them, that the seniors and or disabled individuals can avail themselves of.
And really, the only source of funding for this would be people's donations.
Yes.
I mean,
We think there might, and we think there might also possibly be trust funds that might consider donating from the trust fund to this, but I mean, it's one flavor or another of private donations. So.
Well, that, and like, there are environmental justice type grants for especially folks over a certain age that you can apply for as your own grant. You'll work with the TA and the TA's office to maybe look at some of those grants. I've done that.
Something that can actually, to help people pay a bill,
Yeah, I mean, from an educational perspective, and I'd be happy to write in grants that need to be written, but I think what we're doing here is basically reducing the local tax load. So I think it would be difficult to get state or federal assistance for that. But if there are grants on, how to go about soliciting donations or.
So it's that, and like educating the group, like you said, like educating seniors, let's say, for example, and like saying, here's some different avenues to help you, relief on tax burden and other opportunities for ways to offset some of those costs. So
we also don't have an environmental justice community in Dunstable, so maybe hard to tap that. So
you can work on that. You never know.
Yeah.
But no, it's great ideas and great work. So
John, question?
Yeah, sorry, I came in late. Do you have, any idea of the number of people in town who might fit your criteria?
I don't, Joan, only because, I just don't have any insight into people's income.
Right.
So the common denominator, whether you're elderly or disabled, is an income level. So that's why we really spent the most amount of time thinking about what would be fair and not nosy about that. So commensurately, I don't really know that information about the residents. So, and I think the first cycle or a couple of cycles probably will be very experimental, right? So, we're going into this with eyes wide open and no preconceived notions at all. It's really like, this seems like great formation criteria. It certainly is in line with how other towns are handling it, certainly on the less complicated side of how other towns are handling this, but certainly within the realm. So I think we need to do a cycle or two, see how we feel,
Yeah.
build the kitty, get feedback from the community, get feedback from donors, and, continue to evolve as we move forward. So
Yeah, it's exciting. It's
it is.
Great work.
It's great. Really, it was a lot of information. A lot of towns have been doing this for many years. And a lot of towns are, very large towns with lots of money, at their disposal. And this is like impactful.
Mhm.
So we had to figure out, okay, so all of that, some of the applications, oh, good lord, they were like 20 pages, and you had to file like your last 5 years returns and a statement from your CPA. It was like, no, thank you, but we get where you're coming from,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's where we're going. I think from this board, we would just ask if we could get the other resident member appointed just as soon as we could, because we run on a very tight quorum. And as I said, we're gonna have a new treasurer and a new chair of the board of assessors. So at some point when they're sworn in and we have our new resident, 3 of the 5 of us will be new. And, I don't wanna commit too much to this if there's a different perspective or point of view
Yeah.
coming into July.
Great. That's a great update.
Yeah, you've done a lot in a short period of time. That's great.
We wanted to make sure we were effective. There's a need.
There is.
So, all right, well,
Great, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great evening.
all right, you too. Thanks, everyone. See ya. Bye.
Okay, next up, the budget transfers. Jump into that.
So I sent out a memo just outlining the transfers that were required to kind of true up some of the budget lines for FY '25. Really focused here on the budget interdepartmental budget transfers, not so much the reserve fund transfers, but the memo you have does include the reserve fund transfers, just for your information. The two department transfers that I'm hoping you'll consider, one is for snow and ice. Our salary line in snow and ice is overspent. So the good news is the budget isn't overspent, so we just need to transfer expense money to salary just to true their budget up. But snow and ice will still have a balance at the end of it, a smaller balance than we typically have because of the winter we experienced. But that budget will still be overall in balance.
Okay.
The second transfer request is for firefighting supplies and equipment from fire department wages. The reason for that is, you may remember during some of the presentations, our capital, the capital needs outlined for FY '26, the cost of those exceeded the $120,000 that we funded in FY '26. So I'm hoping to use this transfer to fund the firefighter capital request for FY '26 for mobile replacement of mobile radios.
Well, their radios are essentially obsolete, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. In the memo, it basically describes the condition of them. But yeah, this description was provided by the chief. They're 15 to 20 years old. They've been at their end of life, but we've been limping along with them. They're not digital, use obsolete technology. There's issues with interoperability. They run at 50 watts rather than 100. There's a laundry list of issues that apparently they're having with them. So this was their priority request for '26. And so this would help us fund that and be able to fund all the other needs for '26.
And that's still.
In the budget, the
It's
fire
within
budget will still be in balance,
right.
correct? Yes. We can, if you want to go through the reserve fund transfers, we can do that too, but that's an advisory board decision ultimately, but if you want to, we can.
Well, they own the reserve fund.
They do.
And the ones that are listed there are reasonable. I mean, they're.
Yeah.
I don't think they come as a surprise to really any of us. So, we'll lean on our advisory friends for that.
These radios that Bill is referring to,
Yes.
is he gonna go out to bid for that?
So he has one quote from a vendor that we've used in the past for other things, who is on the state bid list. But he is seeking other quotes. The quote that we have, the only quote we have right now is about $27,000. So it's
Probably
about,
from Beltronics.
yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. Yeah.
You'll need other numbers.
Two, right? It's two when you have the state contract list, or is it more than that?
So they recommend three.
Yeah.
Recommend three.
Yeah, curious to see what it looks like.
But 2 will get us there. Are they recommending or
Well, if you're on
requiring?
the state bid list, the contract has been bid already for a certain, either
Mhm.
products or services provided. So the state has done the work, the procurement work for us, basically, so we can pick and choose vendors off the state bid list. They still recommend getting quotes though.
Okay,
Cool.
Okay,
have a motion?
yeah, you do. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, I move to approve end of year FY 25 budget transfers as presented totaling $53,561.56.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Next up. Annual appointments, board commissions and committees. So we have a list here.
Yeah,
Um,
when I go through this list, right, my only question is, has everybody that's on the list agreed to get, right, there's nobody that's bowed out, right? That
No,
said they don't wanna
everybody
do it.
that's on this list has said they want to renew or they're interested.
Yeah, all
There's
right.
a few new appointments on there.
I don't have any issues with any of that. I kind of
No,
perused it earlier, so I want to go forward with that. We can.
oh, do you want me to read through quickly?
No, I don't think you have to. I mean, she's got it covered here. So I move to appoint town officials, board and committee members as presented in the document entitled Appointments, Staff, Committees, Boards, and Commissions dated June 3rd, 2025.
Can I ask a question before I second that? Just occurred to me that one of those folks is sort of identified their last name for the Concom as Bridget Pontebrand, but she's also Bridget Braley of our
Well, she's married, yeah.
Board of Health
That's her married name.
chairperson. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any concerns with the conservation and the Board of Health? Because she is compensated by the Board of Health. And
She
it
gets
might-
paid by Neshoba,
She does, but she's appointed by our Board of Health to be our,
our liaison to Neshoba.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I see a conflict there.
they sort of cross-pollinate pretty well though, right? When you have a conscom issue on a lot for a septic design per se, and then you have the Board of Health agent there. Just food for thought.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, I think by the time they get to, I mean, they're gonna be dealing with Concom before, I mean, I think they abut each other, but don't necessarily overlap.
Right,
They're bound by different laws.
right.
But isn't
She has
the
no say.
success of the conservation vote enables her to continue her business for the Neshoba Board of Health? Because conservation is going to approve a septic design or with the Board of Health, And then she's gonna go and evaluate it and get compensation from the Board of Health as a result of that approval.
Yeah, that's the right way that would get done. I understand that. I don't know that, I don't know, maybe you have. I
Well,
don't
the Conservation
necessarily-
Commission doesn't necessarily approve a septic system. They may approve
Right.
a filing for work that is occurring within 100 feet of a wetland. So if someone submits a notice of intent to the Conservation Commission, whether it be a house, a barn, or a septic system, it's really not specific to what the project is. It's the fact that there's work occurring within that area. So what we're looking at is where the edge of the wetland is, which Board of Health has no say over that.
Sure.
The location of the system is based off of Title V. We have no say over that. So we're making sure that the work that is being done has proper erosion control. It's a permitted project, a legally permitted project within the 100 feet.
But the enforcement of Title V is done by the agent.
Right, but the Conservation Commission doesn't deal with the enforcement of Title V or the concept of how the system is designed. We care about when it's being installed, that erosion control is being put in. There's not erosion occurring into the wetland. We have no say over the design of it, the approval of it, or anything like that.
That's Bridget.
Bridget would do that.
But doesn't, I'm just,
Yeah, I get you saying there's,
Conscom is part of the process, but they're not driving it.
correct,
but they tee it up for the Board of Health.
not really.
Not really.
But you would say, I mean, I was on Conscom and we
Yeah.
would look at a, building project, potentially and say, well, this looks like it's in good working order. Now it goes off to the Board of Health.
We would only approve it if what they're proposing is going to have the requisite, erosion controls, and then not proposing to put the septic system in the wetland, or, it's not gonna have like certain contours that is gonna be prone to erosion, that's gonna cause a problem there. How the system is actually designed, we don't have any control over that.
Okay. Just,
Yeah.
I know it's Dunstable and sometimes our lines get, we're trying to fill out our boards and commissions, which is always tough. And I like a volunteer more than anyone else, but just,
Well, but in this particular case, she's probably a little more than a volunteer. I think she's got significant technical expertise.
but she gets paid for those expertise.
She does. Yeah, absolutely.
And she would join a conservation site visit as a Board of Health agent,
She could. She could.
and she'd be getting compensated to do that while also being there to fulfill quorum on a site visit.
Have any input on that?
My only input would be that, and she recently got elected to the water board too. And in that case, I don't want to mix this up, but I believe in that case, her role on the water board, she did call ethics proactively. And if she did that for the water board, I don't want to make an assumption, but she may have done that for the Conservation Commission before. She may have even told me she did that, and I'm just not remembering, to be frank.
Well, do we want to
but-
have that, just to quell your concerns? Anybody?
I know
that's
she
doing
filed, I
anything?
know she has filed a disclosure
Yeah,
out of an abundance of caution. For at least the water board, if not Concom too. I just don't recall. If you want to wait to know that. And have that
I'll go with what the
information.
board says. I just like.
Well, let's,
I mean, let me,
I'm okay. This is a role she's had for some number of years, right? This isn't like it's,
Not for conservation.
but in terms of her with,
Sure.
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's been there a while, so, And maybe she has the requisite paperwork, and if she's done that for the water board, she may have done that for
Yeah, I mean,
conservation.
to me, just on the face of it, they appear to me to be two separate and distinct roles.
Okay.
And with different responsibilities. You would know better than me if they overlap in any instances. And you being you served on the Concom too, I never have, so you may know too. If they're two separate and distinct roles, there's unlikely to be a problem.
I mean, we have other members on the board that serve on other boards as well. We have a Concom member who's on planning, there's a Concom member who obviously is on the select board.
That it happens everywhere
It
just because
happens.
of the size of the community and the need to
Right.
fill roles, like Karen was saying, yeah.
And in some ways, having that, it actually sort of simplifies the process. It helps to have knowledge from another perspective.
Right,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. It's
And she's one of 7. There's
True.
checks and balance there,
Yeah.
if you're really concerned. And that is my real area of expertise.
Yeah.
So I feel like,
my concern was just, it's being compensated by the Board of Health. And like Carol Rock, for example,
mhm,
gets compensated by Conservation Commission in the town
and planning board.
and Planning Board, right? But, is she's probably too busy to go onto another board, but I'm just trying to figure out like that, sort of have some tentacles into each other. Because she'd probably bring a lot of great experience to the Conservation Commission.
Carol?
Bridget,
Oh, Bridget, yeah.
but just food for thought. It's not like I'm selling houses for the town as a realtor.
But-
I don't get compensated by the town, I volunteer.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's an issue. If there is some unease, I would recommend that we just put this one particular off and see if she did get an ethics ruling. I mean, you're right, there are appearances that
No, I mean,
may
if
cause some
you,
strife for some people,
yeah,
but personally, I don't think it's an issue, but I'm not the law.
neither am I. If you guys are okay with it, I'm
no, I'm, I think she's typically the kind of person that, will vet this for herself, but, I mean, I don't, we can exclude her, put her on, ask her to get a ruling from the Ethics Commission on her participation level and her payment from the SHOBA, but that's up to her to do that and not the town.
Well, right.
So she's on her own with that. In the meantime, I can amend the motion that, the appointment is gonna be absent of her.
Okay, before we jump to that, do you have a question that, right? Okay.
I just wanted to ask the question.
No, fair enough.
I don't need paperwork to back it up, but I'd be remiss if we didn't ask it.
Yeah.
I'm a nosy Nelly, so if you want to appoint and roll these through, I don't know. So.
Yeah, okay.
I would say, generally speaking, the cross-pollination, if you will, between boards is complementary. For example, the planning board now does a lot of work with stormwater runoff. That's a new assignment. We spent, Joan will tell you, half a time or more on that. Conservation Commission gets involved as well. Both are regulatory, both have an impact on both. It helps. Now, one difference here is I'm not paid. But in the case of Title 5 versus Chapter 131, Section 40, wetlands, as Leah has said, they are clean different things. That said, it is helpful for different boards to know what's going on, and very often helpful to the applicants. Because they can get a heads up sometimes in terms of knowledge, learning, ahead of the game, if you will. The complimentary, but certainly checking with the state ethics folks. Diffuses any,
Yeah,
there's plenty of sniping out there, and so it's great.
yeah, I mean, if you're concerned and you feel there's an appearance of conflict, I think it's worth it for us to just let her, and she may have that information. She may have had a question with
I'm
that.
asking, it doesn't
Okay.
sound like she did. She was
Okay.
waiting, I think it sounds like she was waiting to be appointed before she did, but she was planning on doing it, so.
Oh.
And that's fine.
So what would we
I
like
was
to
just-
do,
I was just-
Madam Chair? Do you want to exclude her or do you want to include her? I don't have a strong preference one way or another.
Well, why don't we wait? I mean, it just to be completely safe and, is let her get it. And then when we have time before the end of the year to appoint, the end of the fiscal year, so.
We don't have, no, I don't know how long it would take to get a ruling out of ethics. You can call them and have
Yeah, they
ethics
have
on
an
call.
attorney of the day.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Usually they
There's
answer
no
pretty
formal
quickly.
documentation unless she requests
They'll,
a written document. The
They'll provide-
attorney of the day is just chit chat. He doesn't send you anything.
they'll
Yeah.
provide guidance, yeah, they'll provide guidance, they're pretty good.
They're very good. You call them, they're gonna be back in a day or two.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Okay,
You want to in or out?
well, let's hold on her.
All right,
Just,
so
let's get
I'll
that.
amend the motion for appointments, staff committees, boards, and commissions to be inclusive of all listed with the exception of Bridget Punterbrand, pending an ethics commission ruling on her participation.
Second.
Any further discussion? All's in favor?
All right,
Aye. Okay, good.
Meeting minutes?
Sure.
I don't have an issue with them if everybody else is.
Good.
No, we've got some new folks, so that's great.
So I move to approve meeting minutes from May 21st, 2025 as submitted.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Okay, 473 High Street update. So there was a small group of folks organized by Jason to sit down this morning and talk about the property, Lansing property, the Amos Kendall Homestead on 473 High Street, about our potential options for our right of first refusal on that 11-acre property. We met for a lot longer than I think we anticipated.
For sure.
We're there almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a good conversation.
Yeah. Do you want to sum it up, seeing it was your group? I can,
Okay, yeah, so I'll try to sum it up and you can fill in
Okay.
the gaps. So the chair of the Historic Commission, Ann Davis, visited the site with a historic restoration.
Toby's.
Okay.
Yeah.
And essentially, tell me if I'm not describing this right, but found that the building could be restored. The estimate provided was approximately $400,000 to restore the building. That is not a public work estimate though, so it
It was
doesn't.
more, it would have been 5, because it was 100,000 for the shoring up of the frame.
Oh, so
Yeah,
5
so
total. Okay, so 5 total.
Exclusive of well and septic, or was that with?
No, I
well
think
and
that was
septic?
all, my understanding was that was all in. But that does not include prevailing wage,
All right.
if we were to do the work. So,
Yeah.
add on whatever prevailing wage would be to that number. if the town decided to do the work.
But there's also, and when you look at prevailing wage, okay, that would mean the town's gonna contract that work directly.
If the town were to do the work.
Right,
Correct.
and
That is
it-
correct.
And where I'm going with this is that in addition to chapter 149, we would need to, take on design services, right? Because you gotta go to bid. So you're gonna need a set of bid documents.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
You gotta have, and I don't know whether
Very
Toby's
good.
included MEPs.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's looking at structure, saying, I'm gonna put a new roof on it.
That's a
do
good
this.
point. It's fair.
And now you gotta wire it, you gotta put air conditioning into it, and you got plumbing to do.
I think the systems work was baked in, according to Ann, I think, the systems work was baked into the cost. But the design work, I don't think was. That's a
Yeah, I
fair,
don't
that's a
think,
fair
she didn't
point.
mention that.
So that would be, those costs would likely be in addition to, just to get us ready to bid the project. I think that's right.
It's actually a good number if the septic's included and like getting a well.
I don't know if septic was included. She mentioned interior house stuff.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
so
a fun
then
ways.
septic and well, that's
Super.
50
There is did you think, was there a well on the property?
in the
Yes,
house.
there is.
There is a dug well, other than what's in the house.
Okay, so a shallow well, not artesian.
The old dug well that is in the house is no longer in use and hasn't been for some time. There's a regular well that goes with the house.
So I thought the systems were included, but maybe septic wasn't.
She mentioned electric, plumbing.
HVAC.
She didn't mention septic.
But you got septic and then you got water. If the well is a point well, right, it's not,
Sounds
I
like
don't know.
Alan may know. Is it
25 feet.
artesian or is it a
Is
shallow?
it a dug well, Alan?
That I don't know. My impression is that it's a drill well, but I can't say that for sure. I'm just recollecting something I was told, and it's a little fuzzy. Basically, the committee or the group looked at that issue, considered the prevailing wage issue and all the things that
Yeah.
are coming up now. And wound up being strongly toward the idea of the town, if the town exercised its option, it would take that house and turn around, put some covenants on it with regard to historical appearance, and such, and sell it for someone to restore. The realtor had remarked, and I know personally, that there were several people who looked at the property and said, when it was on the market, and said that they would love to do that, but that they couldn't swing the 11 acres for 800,000. They just wanted to deal with the house and restoring it. And so if the town exercised its option, there is already a plan with 3 house lots. This house, the existing house is on about 3 acres. The feeling, Jason, they can correct me if I'm wrong, my feeling is that there was a very strong leaning towards if the town does this, you turn around and you sell that house. You make it something that someone would want to, and you put in the covenants that
Right.
it's a restoration deal, it's not a dead end.
Yeah.
But you don't get too picky because, goodness sakes, basically you want to preserve the outside appearance, well, salt box, et cetera. And then you have the other land to deal with one way or another. There are 2 additional house lots. Another house lot could be dealt, perhaps affordable. These things were considered. Jason, do I more or less sum it up?
Yes.
And the group thought that basically that a logical next step would be to sound out various boards, including FinCom and so forth, and get their feedback. Obviously, a town meeting would be required. You don't go to town meeting unless you have your boards in line. You don't have the support of all the boards. What's the point? But basically, the idea seems to be, and again, Leah and Jason, right from your end, that if the town bought it, you deal the house, maybe you deal another lot for them, and maybe you keep some, most likely the backland lot as open space, perhaps something you could lease to one of the new abutters, perhaps, the old house, and that would aesthetically be pleasing and also enhance the value of somebody wanting to go there.
So you're ticking all the boxes of,
You're checking all the boxes of CPC in terms of open space, historical, which is obviously a big deal, and affordable.
The only question I have with that occurred to me after the meeting is, I think for us to purchase the house with CPA, there has to be public, I think a requirement is public access. Or it could be affordable. So I think it would have to be one or the other. So if we were to sell it, there would have to be some public component to it in order for us to be able to go
right,
forward.
which would make it hard
So
to
we'd have to,
flip that
we'd
house.
have to
Yeah.
figure that out somehow.
Usually you can deal with that with a provision that once a year or something, whether that can be a tour of the house.
There are things you can do.
There are
to
ways,
comply.
there are ways to deal with it. It would certainly be cleaner, if you will, and broaden the marketability. Not have that see affordable. Just say,
Yep.
It's the time.
you sell it with some covenants, including maybe, some kind of public access, if you will, very limited, but, and then if you reach affordable, you've got a lot, a lot.
So there were a lot of options that were discussed at the meeting. There were a lot of opinions that were given at the meeting. And, but the majority of the people, I think, agreed to move forward in the manner that Alan suggested. So that meeting happened this morning. I did reach out to council for process questions. So you do have kind of a outline of what the process is for us to follow in order to exercise the right of first refusal on this property. We have until April. I keep saying April. We have until August 15th.
Don't rush to summer.
We have until August 15th to provide an answer to the owner.
Just an answer or actual sale?
An answer and funding.
Right, yeah, it's gotta be it.
Right, okay.
So the board has a couple options. They can notice that you're not going to exercise the right of first refusal. The town council just made a statement that the board has the right to solicit comments, which you have already started and done that from various boards and committees involved.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah,
Do we have a firm report, like a written report from this?
not that I know of.
And I believe
I haven't.
there was an expectation that we were gonna have a report that indicates
Yeah,
Town of Dunstable, this is a rehabable project based on XYZ criteria, and you're gonna compensate me $1,000 or $500 from CPA unrestricted funds to do that.
there may be, I don't know, and I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen it.
We're gonna-
And would be in
We're gonna
custody of
want,
that.
because
You're
when
gonna
we
need
left
that.
our last meeting, they were bringing him in
Mhm.
to review it. He's known to do restorative work. And she was gonna pay him $500 for this report.
Well, that was discussed.
It was.
She didn't have a number from him, but that's what we
She-
thought.
Just rough.
She
Yeah.
floated irrelevant, and nonetheless, we expected to
I think
provide a payment for some sort of a narrative that says, here it is. And then, that narrative, it's like I just asked a bunch of questions about whether or not he has any MEPs in there. Does he have any? The house probably, given its age, I don't know, probably has a cesspool in it, right? I don't know, a lot of old houses have cesspools. And so you gotta put septic in, and do you have enough room between the well and all? Someone's gotta answer all those questions, because we're gonna
Mhm.
go into this and we're not gonna have all of our numbers together or a comprehensive plan that picks up all of these things.
I mean,
That's-
our
that's-
plan wouldn't, we would be looking to sell the property, not build it out ourselves. Right?
Yeah,
So,
there is no feeling from the group that the town ought to be doing this. You're gonna sell
Okay, so we're gonna buy it and then we're gonna sell it?
with covenants.
Now, that will
The
affect.
goal is to preserve the house, restore the historic component of it as much as possible. Yeah.
So, well, if that's true, and that's the way it is, why can't we just, let the existing owner know that we'll pass on our right of first refusal, but you gotta have that house restored to some condition that it used to be, and let them deal with it, because to Alan's point, I am okay, I understand the covenant process,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure that we've gotta buy this thing, add the covenant, and then sell it. I think we might have some way to let the guy know, that's great, fix it and make it look like Amos Kendall's house.
Yeah, but from what I
So
understand, is not willing to do that without some major.
What he has said to,
He is who?
Potential.
Patrick Larkin, who is the potential buyer.
Mhm.
Based on what Ian said at the meeting this morning, was that he would be willing to restore the home, but he would need an additional house to do it. So, right, his initial plan that has been presented to the planning board was 3 homes.
Mhm.
What he
Lots
would,
of courthouses.
Including-
if he were to restore the home, he would need an additional home to build, a new
Which
home
would
to
need a
build,
variance.
I can't remember. Can't make-
Which would-
I know exactly what it is. Just
which
like-
would require a variance from the ZBA.
The process of covenanting and dealing with the current owners and so forth, as you described, would be extremely difficult, as opposed to much more straightforward to, town owns it, the town puts, covenants on it and boom.
Well, that,
How do you enforce it? It would be more challenging, I think, although, it could be looked into. What Toby said was, needs some structural work, sills, this, that, and the other, 100,000 for structural work, give or take, this is an estimate.
it is, yeah,
But he knows what he's doing,
he does, absolutely does.
And about $400,000 for soup to nuts, plaster, plumbing, electric, et cetera.
Interior stuff.
In other words, 500 grand to make it ready to roll. That's his estimate. Point well taken. I don't know if that deals with well and septic. I'm pretty sure there is existing well water supply. I mean, I know that they were not using the double well, it used to be the kitchen. I know people living there until, year and a half, 2 years ago. Septic, but again, that would be the, person who bought the property, which might affect the price of town again.
Yeah, but
We need to know.
that path keeps us out of that restorative work being done by the town. and keeps us out of chapter 149.
We're not looking
We're gonna,
to do
so,
it ourselves.
no, I know that, so we're gonna get, and the only thing I would say is, I drove by, I haven't been in it, but I'm gonna tell you from what I know about construction costs, he's low on his number. I mean, you gotta hold that house up, you gotta jack it up, pull those sills out, put in pressure treated sills. I'm gonna guess the electrical on that house is probably around 30 grand. You got a plumb, air conditioning, and it's gonna get some landscaping. So, but I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to us because we're gonna buy it, we're gonna put a covenant on it, and then we're gonna flip it with that covenant that's gonna say, you're gonna buy this house, you're gonna restore it. That's what you, is that what?
Well, it matters because we have to sell it.
Well, it does, but it's gonna have,
So
it's
We
gonna
would
have a
have to
covenant
sell
on
it.
it.
I know, but we'd have to find a buyer who wants to
Who
do
wants
that.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Who wants to do that?
That's my point.
That may become gating.
Would it be easier to, and I don't know the mechanism for this, but if this group of current buyers willing to restore it, which sounds awesome, is giving them the third additional building lot? Like, I don't know where, and I don't, that's way outside our realm. I think that's planning and ZBA. It's my guess. Isn't that the preferred path?
Yep.
Well, not if you're trying to preserve the integrity of the historic area. And
I think he's only asking.
part of
But the
it,
house
part
is
of the
historic.
history, the house and the land it's on, it's a package. So this plan to put the covenant on the house and then sell it allows to keep the historic significance of the house, trying to keep some of the open space affiliated with it that the town would then own, serves to provide protection of the historic landscape on which that house sits. And then cutting out one more lot to sell, but if it have to be affordable, that, obviously affordable, but also to provide an added amount of income that could fund it.
I guess also is that, the science and the mechanics of dealing with the zoning issue, and that might be challenging. Also, there's a spring, there's wetlands on the left of the house, and there's a brook over on the right.
Yeah.
So my guess is you might run into some issues there as well.
So just to jump on that point then, like, we haven't done a survey of this parcel and identified where the building lots are, and we're thinking of buying it.
No, there's a plan showing the 3 building lots all laid out and signed by the planning board.
And one of the lots is with the existing house.
So, but not the fourth.
No,
No,
he wants an extra
there's
lot,
not enough
because he
frontage.
can't make the numbers work.
Yeah, so you would.
So you would need to go to the ZBA to get a variance from planning board rules and regs in order to,
There's an hardship, I mean, come on. Tough to do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but you know, it might, so I remember from,
And aesthetically,
probably not great either.
yeah. I mean,
But-
you gotta consider the neighbors, what they like. I don't think, I think they want something that looks halfway decent, not, a little jumble.
well, and there's some abutters that are right up, very close to those property lines too.
Yeah.
I guess my reservation is if we buy it and then we put covenants on it, I don't know who's gonna buy it. Because that house was on the market for almost a year before they finally came to an agreement with the Larkin group.
Well, to
And
your
it's-
point,
and it's
we would
state.
need to understand that before, we've got to understand what the marketability of that house is with the covenant on it. Because we could be buying a white elephant.
So,
Well, the thing is, I mean, if the price is low enough, somebody will buy it, that's for sure. Now, while it was for sale, 2 people were directed to me because of the thought that I knew something about that history of the town or whatever, with regard to buying it and restoring it. And the broker, real estate broker, said that she had dealt with other people. So there were several people. Their problem was they didn't want to buy the whole thing. And it was never an option to buy just the house on 3 acres. It was always 11 acres, 800,000. You or I might say, well, buy the thing, carve it up, cut off a lot, 2 lots, whatever. That is a challenge that, most people don't even. want.
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
it's a gamble, but not much of a gamble, based on the demand, based on the number of people who were interested, said they'd love to restore it, but, I think the only question would be, are you gonna have to get, 250, 3, 2, how to sell it? That's the issue. You're gonna be able to sell it with some reasonable covenants, mainly with regard to the outside appearance, some kind of historical public plaque or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing we talked about. But it seems to me that the group that met this morning needs to come up with further information. Well, septic, blah, blah, blah.
Foundation.
Firm up, I think it's fairly firm already, but firm up the proposal and talk with FinCom, planning board, conservation, whatever. The other boards that logically you line up for something like this to go to town meeting. And if you can't get the boards behind it, including your board, forget it. You don't go to town meeting with, FinCom saying, no, this doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree, I understand.
And so I would think that you need to, and time is of the essence. You need,
Well, you only have a couple months to get this.
you need to take, let's say the rest of this month, max, to get the
Sort this
boards
out.
in line,
Yeah.
and then say, okay, which way do we go?
You need at least 35 days to schedule. a
2
special-
weeks.
2 weeks for a special time? Okay, all right.
How many acres,
11,
but how many are you thinking about leaving with the house?
3.
Why 3?
Because that's the way the plan is laid out, and that's what makes sense in terms of where the wetland on the left is of the house, and where the house is located on the property, and the curve of the road. No, the plan's perfectly logical, well laid out plan.
Jason, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was just gonna, not really, I was just gonna walk through the
Oh,
rest of the process if people are ready for that. You want me to?
Yeah,
Okay.
Is this from Mark?
This is from Brian. So town meeting within the time period of April 17th to August 15th, town meeting would need to approve the acquisition and appropriate the money to do it, which would be, if we're not doing the work, $750,000. That's the
Contracted.
That's the offer,
Yeah.
that's the offer right now. If the select board is going to exercise its option, there is apparently a notice public hearing requirement too, so you'd have to have a notice public hearing. in
Well,
order-
advisory would have to hold a public hearing too.
If they were, yeah, for the town meeting, they would, yes.
It's money, they have to wave it through or no?
That's correct, yeah. And I think that's all, I think that was all I wanted to say for the process stuff.
So if we were to buy this, it's a question, I know this is out there. How are we gonna get the money? We're gonna get a loan?
CPA is what's being contemplated.
Okay.
And that's both like historic,
all 3 possible. But we have to sort out what you were talking about, you and Alan were talking about. If CPA funds are used, how do we sell it?
Right.
To a private entity?
You gotta get that worked out, because that's gating.
Yeah.
That may be
There's gotta be a public aspect to it.
Yeah, and that may be a problem.
Well, it's perfectly feasible to use CPC money on privately owned properties. Or to, I don't think that would be a legal issue.
No.
But it has to be
That's-
for a
that's
public
not- That's
purpose.
not a legal issue, but
Yeah,
the public, there's gotta be a public purpose for it.
Yes,
So there's gotta be public access in some way, shape or
Yeah.
form.
and again, as I said, that's,
unless it's affordable housing.
If it's affordable housing, that is, I believe that would
Okay.
qualify as the public purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both, if we were to cut out that 2 acre and sell that lot and the house, the restored house, would both have to be affordable unless there's some other.
no, the.
The house would be
A
affordable.
single house would not have to be affordable, as long as if that ain't an historic house, nothing is in this town.
But it has to be, the way I
There
understand.
has to be some public access and
Right,
recognition. You gotta have a plaque, you gotta be able to maybe visit, open house once a year.
And it has to be redone to the Department of the Interior's, blah, 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 blah,
That's true,
regulations.
that's true.
Can you, I don't know the answer to this question. If someone owns on their own, say Alan, you own the house, can you be forced to hold a public viewing of your home once a year? I don't know. Because like my parents' house is historical
There are
and
examples.
no one comes into their house. Like,
yeah, but it wasn't purchased with CPA.
no. It has a plaque on
There are examples.
it. So that works, really?
There are
Holy
examples.
moly, that's unreal.
I just know of one, but, that is an example of it's like my recollection is it's a private and historic inn that UCPC funds as to renovate and restore, and they have several kind of public events annually to comply. with
Wow, that's
CPA
cool. All right.
requirements.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unfortunate for the
Yeah,
owner.
this is the kind of house that you're gonna wanna go through the house anyway. You're talking about the outside.
No, you're not helping your cause, Al.
You're
You're not helping your cause.
Maybe upon investigation and Joni's comment, maybe that, say, this is too much. But we don't know.
We don't know that yet.
We don't know until we try.
Yeah, I guess it's just important to know what the town's financial rigor is gonna end up being here. Like,
Right,
what's the burden?
right.
And like what, save the home and the parcel, the 3 acre parcel, and make it look fantastic. And what's the CPA's bandwidth for funding to that level? And what's the end goal here?
Well, with the sale of the house, however, if that could be worked out, and if it was considered to sell, I mean, there would be money coming back into that, so the full 70 from the CPA
One committee that,
would be half.
is key, obviously, is the CDC.
Mhm.
They would, the CDC, now some of us are on it, fine, but there's plenty of people who aren't here who are on it. And, I'm sure that, CDC would be talking with, Tony's friend Stuart, as to, what will fly, what can you do? Some of these questions have come up, and so he would play a major role in, is it doable? And then taking a vote.
But that's gonna happen quickly too.
Next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta happen in the month of June.
Yeah. And, for the historian who went and evaluated, like, we're gonna be looking, to me, it's like, how do you defend it when you're in line to get a coffee? oh, we got a great report, it says we do X, Y, Z to restore it, it's gonna be fantastic, cool. I can get behind that type of, because we did that with some of the other projects, like the High Street Bridge and the Bob Kennedy parcel, like those, like that's something you could really visualize and it's easy to defend.
Oh,
But throwing $750,000 at a house that, when you drive by, it just looks, people don't even know it's
Well, but it's
historic.
not just the house, it's the whole concept. Think beyond the house. Think of the land that it's on, which is all part of the homestead and that is,
Right, but the home is historic.
well, yeah, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Yes, it is.
And that's
And what
what Ann said.
And
so.
what it is on is historic too.
Yeah.
Like the property across the street, the Kendall property, the Amos Kendall land and the Cranberry Bog property, I mean, was all part of that whole farm.
Yeah.
And that has value too, without a house.
We own
Believe
that.
it or not. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
How long did it take to find a buyer for the house on Westford Street? Wasn't that a situation? That old, the old house, I forget the name.
on Clarence, not very long. Quite different. A lot of land, a lot of frontage.
So what's our
So,
takeaway?
yes, and our next steps here would, I guess, would be to see what advisory board thinks.
Well, do you have enough information to go to advisory board?
They're meeting tomorrow night, it's not on their agenda, but they do have a meeting tomorrow night to go over some of the.
Tomorrow night, you don't have a heck of a lot of time to put anything together. I wouldn't expect, you're gonna end up getting advisory, asking a lot of questions. And I don't know that you're in a position to be able to do that at this point. I don't know if you have enough data, but
And Jake's a pretty thorough guy, so he's gonna.
Yeah.
That's what I like about him.
Another
I
thought,
think need a week to a couple of weeks probably, to,
Bake some of this
Gear
out.
up.
Yeah.
so that.
Yeah.
Question that come up tonight and others that we can anticipate, we've got the answers. And, we asked the advisory committee to schedule a meeting when we're ready.
So we need to put together our list of questions,
You're saying.
gather info.
did you also, were looking for the report from, is it Tobias?
Tobias,
Yeah.
yeah.
yes.
Right?
So, yeah, really the questions are septic, well, those, life features, the report from the historian, because they're an expert in the field. And
Good night,
then
thanks. Your hat?
Paul Carroll. And then the all-in livability number and what that costs us. Not that it's so important to us, but like, how do we sell it?
Well,
Right, I mean, we can't get into this without understanding that. If there's no buyers for that thing, right?
well, we
we're
can
gonna
find the right real estate company and
we're gonna
market it the right way. I mean, there's
find
gotta be.
a buyer for the thing, and we're gonna invest
Buyer.
$750,000, and we're not gonna have a potential buyer.
And the town actually can't hire a real estate firm. You go through an RFP process
Yeah,
to sell a piece of land. As I'm doing this in Townsend now for a parcel.
Yeah, you used to have to go to auction, right? But
And
that
now it's an
changed.
RFP process, so you gotta hire a firm to write the
does it
RFP.
have to go to auction? Is that how?
It
that-
used to.
It used to, a lot changed though.
And then you gotta have someone give you a market analysis of what it's worth, what your expectations of what you're gonna get, and then you could have town council run you through the
Yeah, we
RFP
don't,
process.
there's a lot of, we don't have a management plan for this thing.
Well, no, we just started this.
I don't know how you're gonna get that done on the timeline we got, that's yeoman's work.
Yeah, I mean, the concern for me, frankly have a lot of concerns about this, but my concerns are, the timing of it, having just asked for an override, almost $500,000, and now wanting to purchase this property. I think we really need to be mindful when we're making decisions like this on not only the cost of acquiring, but the cost of not having the property on the tax rolls anymore. Most communities are trying to expand their tax base, not restrict their tax base, and this would further restrict a tax base that is already very small. And
We
having,
get some back taxes out of this too, by the way.
They have back taxes?
Yeah, it's 61A land. It's 8 acres in 61A.
not a ton, but yes. it's
It's
true.
enough. I mean,
Yeah.
So I think those two things are really concerning. I think,
But that has to be part of the decision-making
No, I-
process.
well, that's why I'm,
Everything you just
yeah,
said,
that's what I'm talking
absolutely.
about. I think like especially coming in the summer, you know, there are just, whether we like it,
There were difficulties
there's
to
optics
doing it,
around
yeah.
that, you know.
We've been through that before, yeah, we have.
A lot of people aren't gonna be able to make it, a lot of people are away. If this is the only thing on the warrant, it's only gonna attract a small, you know, I think a small group of people there.
It's not a pickleball court, which is being like, used every day. I had a plan.
And that was actually my one other concern is that, you know, I think from a CPA perspective, like, I think, you know, what I would love to focus on is things that can feel, touch, see, and improve their quality of life. Not that this wouldn't, I'm not saying this wouldn't do that, but it would be great to focus on some projects that do more of that
Yeah.
through the CPA, because I think that's an important part of letting people know what they're getting for their investment, basically.
So the real option is to let the developer build out the house and give him the other lot.
Well, that would definitely be my choice, but that's not, I don't have it's not my choice.
Which,
But if it were
what,
my choice, that would be my choice.
what did you say?
The guy wants an extra lot. He wants Amos's house and
3 other lots.
3 other lots.
And that's not what that property really sustains.
And it doesn't sustain it.
I'm not sure if it does, but
Does that have to do with size of the lot or what would
Well,
cause it to not sustain?
what was presented to the planning board was 3 lots, based off the information that they have.
Yeah,
But
And I think that has to do with
included
frontage.
taking it down.
I think it has to do with frontage. There are wetlands there. Probably more, and they're not being depicted on a plan, so that it hasn't been flagged and surveyed in that regard. So that I think there may be.
it's not
I don't
surveyed, so
know.
the drawing is just simply conceptual.
Well, that's what the planning board does. But there are other layers to it.
There
So
are
just to
others.
say planning board will just give them a variance to put in a 3rd lot, a 4th
Not our
lot,
call.
it's not our call, and it's not that easy.
You could do a small cluster subdivision up there, but you really need a lot of ZBA and planning board approval. And then you could do a 3-lot cluster subdivision and then save the house. That would be the carrot. You want a 3-lot little subdivision, which would sit in the back house. They're all about 3/4 of an acre, maybe an acre lots, saves the rest of it. Then you put that house in historic, let them redo it.
Well, I think there is a wetland that cuts right through that, at the tree line, so you have setbacks and septic systems and all that have to meet. So, I mean, there's not enough information
Yeah.
to make that decision, honestly.
But it's, that was looked at by, you know, we, sometimes with wetlands, there is replication zones to make up for it, right? I don't know, I'm not a wetlands
Only
expert.
to cross a wetland to access the upland portion of the property. You can't fill a wetland to meet a setback.
We have 8 weeks.
Right.
That's all we got.
Does this abut other conservation,
Across the street,
It's broken, right?
yeah,
There's nothing that
it doesn't
land
mean,
trust would be interested in.
Not at that number.
not at that number, no.
It's too much. That's why it's sat on the market, and that's why it's such a
Yeah.
pain.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, does anybody feel it's worth it to even try to pursue? I mean, I think there is value in the historic aspect, in the open space aspect, and the potential affordable house, but, you know, as you said, there's a lot to,
Oh, there is.
but I hate to just say, oh, that's too much work, screw it.
Well, it's not so much the work as it is understanding the finances of what it's gonna cost and finding a buyer, because if I was at town meeting, I'd say, do you have any idea of who would be a potential buyer? Because that's not a typical sale, it's not.
No, it's not.
And, a guy like Toby could buy it, but you know what, he's gonna want it for next to nothing.
He's gonna give you 50K.
Yeah, about it, about
I
it.
mean, like,
Yeah.
but then like we're taking a bath. That's bad business practice for a town that
Yeah.
just passed an override.
And then we're also, to Jason's point, we're also pulling that off the tax rolls. We're shrinking our tax base by whatever that amount is.
Well, why would be if we're gonna be
If
making
we
it a
buy it,
house?
if we
Yeah.
buy it,
Yeah, but the house would be sold to someone that would
Maybe.
continue to pay taxes.
maybe.
And if you can build out another lot, that is a new lot, which would be continued.
I don't know if you can even do that with the footprint that's there. Can you put another lot on there? I have no idea.
There is, there are 3 lots that
And
are
he
already,
wants,
no,
We bought it for $750.
We bought it.
We get 3 house lots out of it.
yeah,
The house
do this.
and then 2 others that are A&Rs, basically. One of them's an A&R, one of them I think needs approval.
Here's the house. You'd cut out 3 acres there. There's a 2-acre lot there.
Yeah.
We buy the whole thing. We would sell this with the historic covenant, and we could sell this to build a new house,
Affordable house.
affordable.
I'm just saying, his proposal versus what we do, it's not gonna generate as much money,
yeah,
that's all.
I don't know, we may find out in short order here. This is not such a good deal.
Well, and like we've had.
But, but the other aspect, I get the money, I get the real estate thing, I get all that, I get it. But there's other value to things in town.
Well, that's the
That's-
value, but that is,
Right.
it's a value judgment though, it's like,
Right,
the way we're funding our budget doesn't work. It's not working. We've asked for an override 3 years in a row, we can't keep doing that, it's unsustainable.
I hear you.
So that's not gonna be an option. So there's gotta be some decisions here on, if we continue to do that, it's gonna money is a real consideration. There are other considerations, 100%, but money is it has to be. It just has to be, because we can't keep, if we pull land off the tax rolls, it just continually shrinks what we can raise, and we can't raise a lot to begin.
Well, affordable houses, they pay
They
taxes.
do, but much less, the value is much less, so the taxes are much less.
So really,
They do.
yeah, the dream scenario is if we're truly looking at tax roll and keeping the house, is the house sits alone. We tell Larkin, you restore it, and here's 3 house lots. I know there's no real mechanism for that, but it keeps the house, keeps it historic in the town. Still a beacon, has a plaque on it, cleans it up, he does whatever with it. Maybe we could tell him he rents it affordable, just throwing it out there. And then there's 3 other house lots that are perhaps enrolling children, but perhaps paying $15,000 a year because they're probably $1.25 million houses.
Well,
That's
I
what
mean,
the house goes for. Yeah.
I don't think we can just throw him a 3rd lot.
We can't,
No,
by any means. But
And
I'm just,
nobody can just
taking the
throw him that
conversation.
lot. I mean,
no, but we could enter an agreement with him to say, we'd have to work with council, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But to say that we would support, or the board would support an additional lot in your application to the ZBA.
well, at that point, I don't think CPA is gonna put money forward.
we wouldn't have to.
We wouldn't have to, we wouldn't do anything.
Oh, right.
It wouldn't cost us a dime.
Not costing anything.
We're just,
We're just
So you-
making a deal work.
We'd make money on it.
Which is sort of defeating the whole concept.
This is.
The town wouldn't buy anything at this point.
This is if the original, the guy who wants to buy it now, is talking about buying it now, are you talking about if he buys it?
this is very much a dreamer, because I'm a dreamer by nature. It would be, let's use the Larkin names, that's the buyer, Larkin. The select board will come into an agreement with you to save the house, restore the house
Yeah,
to historical standards, And we will advocate, you can't enforce that you get a third house building lot out of the rest of the 8 acres there. I don't know how that works. I would lean to Jason and our dear friend Brian Falk to figure out how to word that out correctly. Keep the house, restore it, make it beautiful again, and you get a third house lot to build on.
And now you've got 3 houses stuffed in there, and that's defeating part of the purpose of even considering this.
But it would save the 3 acres in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
I'm just
And the
coming at it from
beautiful-
a different angle, people, that's all. I'm just,
I mean, we're trying to make this work and,
yeah, but the trying to make it work, part of it is to keep, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
No.
We're trying to prevent, we're trying to stuff 4 houses in this, it's not
no,
part
3,
of,
there's one that's existing,
it'll be 4 houses at the end of the day.
right?
On 11 acres though.
That's Dunstable, man.
I know, I know, but it's 2 acre, I mean, if you do the math out, it's over 2 acres a lot. I know,
Well, it has
I know
to be,
some of it's
yeah.
not, I know.
Yeah.
That's like, but it is. I know some of it's not developable, I know some of it's wet, but if you just do the straight math, it's over 2 acres a lot,
And it saves the house.
and it saves the house.
And we're gonna add to our tax base.
And again, it's not, I 100% agree with you. It ruins the pastoral land with beautiful cows and it was cool.
Then what,
I
I mean,
loved that, like that. I walked up there through all that. It was beautiful. It is. There's no.
but that's
taking that
part of
away.
the historic aspect of the house. Why not just say, tear the whole thing down and just build a house that kind of looks like it? Say, Amos used to live here.
Because there's
You know,
still, but there's still a world that happens anyways, because
Then he, I mean,
we don't have a report to look at to say, yes, we can save all this. Like, I have nothing else other than,
Toby is gonna tell you you can restore it. And I said this at our last meeting, you can restore anything. You need 2 things, time and money. That's it.
Yeah, right.
You don't need anything else.
All right, well,
And so to that point, maybe that's the right answer, is tear the goddamn thing down and have it, and tell them they gotta build a replica of the house.
he won't.
I don't know, just don't put vinyl siding on it.
We can't mandate that.
No, I know we can't.
Just like we can't promise he gets a 3rd lot.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that's part of the discussion, personally.
So if they, I'm not, I can't remember, what the layout of the place was, but, so if they did like, I always forget what it's called. Was it, Kieran, I think you mentioned it. If they did like 1 acre lots, if they did a
cluster.
cluster.
Yeah.
They did a cluster and left a bunch of open space and, and got the original house redone.
Take 5 acres and put a cluster 3-house subdivision in. Be like half of Woodland Drive.
Oh, well, how do you mandate that he does that?
I mean, if
He's
you-
got a plan that shows 3 buildable lots, 3 A and Rs right
Because he
now.
makes more money that way.
Buildable lots, but what happens to the old house?
Restores it.
How do we mandate that?
You work hand in hand with your historic commission and the Department of the Interiors or whoever it is.
No,
I don't
we
know.
can make our right of first refusal contingent upon him restoring that
I mean,
house.
this is why you do the demo delay, this is why you have the demo delay, to do exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah,
To figure out a way, a deal, a plan to save the house.
yeah.
So this is how it's done.
Mm.
This is literally how it's done, so.
It didn't work in Plum Island though, with the pink house.
It doesn't work all the time.
Didn't
Some,
work
I
in
mean,
Rock.
to be frankly, some developers just apply for the demolition permit, get the delay, wait 9 months, and then just take it down. They don't even engage.
Yeah.
I mean, he's.
Someone from that group here last time said we would restore the house.
Mhm.
They've offered that. And, if you were able to restrict the 3 other house lots into a tighter, you know, the 200 feet of frontage, they run up, again, I know nothing about the topography there, they run up along the right, the far end of the lot, and it tucks up on the hill, you have 3 little houses. And then you keep the middle part as pastoral as we can, and then the house continues to still, I don't know, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, they've got to come up with a design for that. We don't do that.
No, but they're gonna just wait us out
Okay.
one way or the other, so.
Yeah.
It's Miller time.
Miller time. We haven't even got to the fun part of the agenda.
We haven't?
Really?
This was the fun part.
All right, so anyway, we've got some information we need to gather and other
Yeah.
boards to talk to and, yeah. Moving on then. Leave time buyback for the police officers union.
We do it every year.
This is, yep, we've done it we've done it every year I've been here.
We have any issues here? I don't think so, because it's a repetitive thing, right?
It is, yeah.
I move to authorize the chair of the select board to sign a side letter of agreement related to holiday and personal buyback with the town's police union, NEPBA Local 7, as presented, dated May 19th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Highway superintendent truck lease purchase agreement.
Are we leasing this? Because a lease would indicate, I don't have anything backing this up, but a lease would indicate that.
The lease is right.
Oh, that's right.
Never mind.
Without having to go through all this, can you give me the high level view? We're gonna lease this truck for a specific amount of money.
3 years.
And then who owns the truck at the end of 3 years?
The town of Dunstable.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get. Have we leased from these guys before? Because this looks like a new name.
I don't know if you've used, All American Investment Group before.
Yeah, I don't
I'm not
know.
sure. We have purchased vehicles from, Liberty before, but I'm not sure about, the financing folks.
I'm okay with this. I actually was the one that kind of sponsored it a little bit, but. Oh, Lord, we went through town meeting with this, so we're in good shape, right?
Yes.
Move to approve the lease purchase agreement with All American Investment Group LLC for the acquisition of a 2025 Chevy Silverado 2500 in the amount of $56,724.33, $53,776.45 is the principal amount, with $3,947.88 is the interest, under the terms and conditions as presented and authorized by town meeting on May 12th, 2025, under Article 17, and authorize the town administrator to sign all related documents on behalf of the board.
I usually would put the chair, but they already sent all the documents and my name was on it. Just
Yeah,
figured it
yeah,
was-
we talked
just
about
figured it
that,
was-
yeah, that's fine.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay, last up, request for, sorry, dangerous dog hearing. So there was another incident with a dog that we had discussed
Same dog, new
about a year
incident.
ago, same dog, and last year, we ended up dismissing that complaint at the hearing. And we had strongly recommended to the owner to take some provisions. We had no cause to order him specifically to do that. So there was nothing that allowed us any sort of enforcement or teeth to make sure he did that.
Well, I thought I think we warned him
We did, but that was
extensively.
all we could do. We didn't have any authority to, we essentially
Well, the
took our
plaintiffs,
own authority
didn't show
away by dismissing.
Correct.
Correct.
Right. and that mutes that, mutes that. So here we are again,
Now we are again with
the
an
dog and a similar incident.
Yeah.
And I guess it's, in my opinion, well, I think we hold the hearing and ask the plaintiff or the complainant to please come and be present.
Yeah, he stopped in, he was in the office and he dropped off the letter, and I explained to him exactly what you just said, and also suggested and recommended that he be here for the hearing. He said he would be.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to come because other than,
Yeah.
I mean, you get a plaintiff or it doesn't show up in a court case, the court's gonna dismiss the case.
Is it the same person that complains about this dog?
No,
No, it's a different
different
situation.
person, different, whole nother,
Different person, different dog, different.
same problem, different person.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, you know, that dog was gonna turn on somebody else and it's, I don't know.
Well, I don't, yeah.
We'll have that
Discuss
at
it
the
at the
hearing.
appropriate
Right.
time.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I agree.
So I really just wanted, just to make sure if you wanna go forward with the hearing.
I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess do we just get the same recap from the animal control officer? Like, do we even get, is there a report that was filed with them and such? I think that's a part of this, but I know the old report's in there as well.
Exactly.
Well,
So you have to,
Animal HCO has to be involved with this process.
absolutely.
And then, like, I know there's some mass general law, but like, what are the expectations? That's what I want to, maybe we can do this offline, just to,
Well, I sent you.
What are the
a copy.
expectations?
of like enforcement and things like.
Leah and I were
It's
on
spelled
the
out,
board
yeah.
and we had an incident on Hillside Street, Hillcrest Street, right?
Yeah,
And, you know, we had counsel involved and she was very clear about what the ramifications of this were, right? And they ultimately, the owner of the dog was established and they ultimately put the dog down because, you know, you gotta go get an insurance policy, you got all this crap you gotta do.
that wasn't our order, however.
It wasn't, no.
Yeah, that was their
We
own
tagged it as a
decision.
dangerous dog. That was what we decided on.
And we gave them, and there's a list of
The
like,
narrative, basically.
Right, they elected to put the
Yeah.
dog down on their own rather than take on the liability of it. I mean, this dog jumped out a window and went after a lady.
yeah. So there are 7 provisions that if you determine it to be a dangerous dog, 7 options you have.
Criteria.
And you can
Yeah.
do one or all.
Yeah. So I may go back and rewatch so I think we were on camera for when the previous,
For, yeah,
Incident.
last year's last.
it was last year.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember, my memory is a goldfish memory, but like, just being like, we can't have this happen again. And we're sort of back.
Yes.
And it's really unfortunate for everyone involved, including the animals. Like, I mean, I'm an
yeah.
animal lover, so like, just,
Yeah.
it's a bummer.
A lot of us have pets.
Yeah.
And we're very sympathetic towards it, but, you know, this is,
Can't keep happening.
absolutely.
But yeah, okay, we're not gonna speak to this
No.
further until we get
Him
into
in
an
the room.
actual hearing and, yeah.
Right, let's listen to all the information.
Yeah.
And make a decision from that.
Okay, do we have anything else other than the TA's report? Do you have anything to report?
Nothing more than what's in the report.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Nothing more than that.
Cool. Is there
If that's the case, is there a motion to adjourn? That sounds good.
a second?
Yeah,
Yeah. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right, very good. Thank you, folks.